allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, before we approve the agenda, I'd like to add an item before the administrative items, a statement read by the county board chair and opportunity for comment. So with that addition, I'd look for approval of today's agenda.
So moved. Second.
A motion and a second. Roll call.
McGuire.
Aye.
Ortega.
Aye.
Reinhardt.
Aye.
Carter.
Yes.
Huffman.
Aye.
Mattisacchio.
Aye.
McDonough.
Aye. Next item is approving the minutes from February 19th, please.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any corrections? Roll call.
McGuire.
Aye.
Ortega.
Aye.
Reinhardt.
Aye.
Carter.
Yes.
Huffman.
Aye.
Mattisacchio.
Aye.
McDonough.
Aye. Before we get into the rest of our agenda, I'd like to take this opportunity to read a statement here on behalf of the Ramsey County Board of Commissioners and Ramsey County as a whole. The Board of Commissioners wants to address the incident from April 13th of 2016 and the action shown by a Ramsey County Sheriff's Office employee in media reports yesterday. The conduct of a correctional officer inflicting significant force upon an already restrained individual is extremely disturbing, even more so when other officers were observing, participating in the restraint of the individual. The sheriff already put out a statement about this incident and the follow-up actions taken by his office. He accepted the resignation of the individual highlighted in the story and is taking steps within his organization to prevent future incidences. We know it will be important to have additional conversations with him and the broader community about this. These actions are grossly contrary to the expectations of Ramsey County employees, and it offends us and the community we are here to serve. It is also important to acknowledge the racial dynamics associated with this incident. A white officer acting upon a black male with a group of predominantly white officers present is alarming and raises additional questions about the systemic issues in our criminal justice system and beyond. On behalf of this entire board and this entire organization, I want to be perfectly clear. There is no place for reprehensible behavior like this in Ramsey County. We do not believe this is to be broadly reflective of the thousands of employees in public service at Ramsey County, but we also know we must spend every moment working to earn the trust of our community that can become distrustful or disillusioned from moments like this. We recognize that Ramsey County residents see us as one organization that must be working together to stop incidences like this from ever happening. It ultimately doesn't matter if events like this occur under the oversight of the sheriff, the County Board of Commissioners, or the county attorney. The public puts its trust in all of us collectively. The board will therefore continue seeking regular opportunities to engage with the sheriff and the county attorney in partnership to reform our criminal justice system, and we appreciate our community and the important role that they play in holding us accountable for that. I would open it up if any other commissioners would have some comments. Commissioner Reinhardt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the statement that you read into the record and what it really means to us as a county board. Our prosperity, opportunity, well-being for all, and the accountability that we talk about and implement every single day in this county clearly was violated. And I watched the entire video and was absolutely appalled and felt that, that as you stated, we do take this seriously, very seriously, and need to do everything that we can to correct and make sure that something like this does not happen again. And the racial connotations from this as well were very clear from the very beginning. So this happened You know, in 2016, I know that there was due process that went through, and I appreciate the fact that Sheriff Fletcher is taking this on and, as you said, took responsibility. But we as a collective Ramsey County Board, as you said, again, the county attorney and the sheriff, moving forward from this, we need to make sure that something like this can never happen again.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Mattis Castillo.
Thank you, Chair. Like all of you, I was horrified to see what we saw in that video last night, and the excessive use of force against Terrell Johnson was unacceptable. And so as I've reflected and unpacked, and I'm emotional with our community, because this is not okay. And although we don't have authority directly over the sheriff's office or his deputies, I know that we share the same commitment to helping our community heal and rebuilding the trust in our community. This incident demonstrates that we have a long way to go and a lot of work to do. So in the spirit of moving forward together, I'd like to encourage Sheriff Fletcher to use the opportunity to partner with our community and to create a fair and impartial civilian oversight board for the Ramsey County Sheriff's Office. A meaningful community oversight will go a long way in reassuring the trust and protecting the deputies who are performing their duties honorably and with integrity, and to holding those who break our trust accountable. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Carter.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that the chair has, on behalf of all of us already, made a statement that very much reflects that we all stand united in our repute of the behavior that we saw. I just want to underscore that this reminds us that at times when we are having difficulty in our community conversations because there is a distrust of systems that should exist to serve all of us, there is an underlying reason for that difficulty. At times we disbelieve the trust or the mistrust that is symbolized in our conversations, and this helps us to understand. It, certainly portrays for us that there is a strand of vicious Jim Crow-like culture that continues to exist even into this very day. And so I support that we would continue and that we would even more aggressively work with our community, with all of our law enforcement and justice systems to really eradicate this. It's taking, as we know already, so much deep and concerted effort, and it will take far more, because we know that we have to share with those who want to serve honorably and respectfully in our justice systems, that we will stand behind them as they work to disallow and to disavow this kind of behavior in any of our systems. So it's important that right now we undertake to work with our community, with our justice system partners. The suggestion of an oversight panel may be the exact route that we can take to do that. In any case, I know that we are all welcoming comments, concerns, suggestions from any of our community members, and that together all of us will work to ensure that we eradicate this behavior, in fact, this very culture from our systems. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner McGuire.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just want to add my voice of support for the resolution that you read, my colleagues' comments, how horrified I was to watch the video and to realize that this had happened, and to just commit, as we all are, and with this statement, to continuing to work with our sheriff to make sure that this doesn't happen again, that this is not a culture that we can tolerate in our county, and that we will work as hard as we can to make sure that we work with the community, with the sheriff's office, to make sure that it doesn't happen again.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Huffman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, thank you for your comments and the other comments I've just heard from my colleagues. Certainly, the public sees us as Ramsey County, and they don't care about the Sheriff's Department versus the County Attorney's Office versus the Board of Directors, or Board of Commissioners. We collectively need to address this, and I think I've heard some great comments already this morning. I think, to me, the most important thing is going to be, as we move forward, is that we as a board have meaningful conversations with Sheriff Fletcher and make sure that we understand from our perspective what is being done, what training is being done, what cultural missives are happening to make sure we change this going forward, for sure.
Good, thank you. Commissioner Ortega.
Well, I just want to say that, first of all, thank you for your words. Very well said. And, you know, this is a reflection of our society. So this discussion is not just about Ramsey County. It's about our society as a whole. And it's not, and it's going to be a struggle that we're going to have to deal with for a long time. And we just got to continue on that path to have those conversations and remove all those barriers where we can look at each other equally and erase all the color barriers and everything else and just accept people for who they are and how they behave.
Good, thank you. I'd like to add a couple more comments here, not only as Jim McDonough, chair of our board here, or Jim McDonough, county commissioner, but Jim McDonough, a member of our community who's raised his family in this community and loves this community dearly. Sheriff Fletcher's talked about supervision and training. That's really important, and I appreciate him calling that out and putting that emphasis on that. But this won't change no matter how much supervision and how much training we get until good people step up and speak out. This could have been stopped a number of times that evening, a number of times with a number of folks in that room. And I have no doubt there was a number of good folks in that room. But the culture of not speaking out, the culture of holding back prevents good people from holding other people accountable. And until good people step up, speak out, and hold themselves and people, their colleagues, accountable, that's what it's going to take to make the change, because that change could have occurred that night at that moment if somebody would have made a decision to say something and change the direction and projection of that evening. And so, you know, I challenge everybody. Commissioner Carter, you talked about we need to stand with those people so they know that we are standing with them when they do. It takes courage to step out and speak out amongst your peers and your colleagues, especially when a culture that doesn't necessarily encourage that. And we need to make sure we're sending that strong message that we're going to stand with them. But my challenge to each and every one of us in this county, no matter whether you work in the Sheriff's Department or you work anywhere, is we should always be asking ourselves, when is good not good enough? When do we need to do better? When do we need to continue to move on a path of excellence that this county is destined for? And each and every one of us in this county at every opportunity has a choice to make about, is it going to be good? Is it going to be better? Is it going to be excellence? And my hope is that we all learn from this incident that we will always strive to be excellent in every moment that we have an opportunity to challenge ourselves and challenge our colleagues to do better in our county and for our citizens. So with that, thank you. Look forward to the conversations with the county attorney and the sheriff. This is really important stuff. We're going to move to the administrative agenda. Commissioner McGuire.
Thank you, Mr.
I'm going to actually ask to pull number 6 because Ryan's got some staff here that wants to talk about the work that went into that. So with that,
And I'd like to pull number 5.
so you can start at 7.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. With that, I will move item number 7, number 8, item number 9, number 10, item number 11, item number 12, and item number 13.
Second.
We have motion and a second. Roll call, please.
McGuire,
Aye.
Ortega,
Aye.
Reinhardt,
Aye.
Carter,
Yes.
Huffman.
Aye.
Mattis Castillo.
Aye.
McDonough.
Aye. Item number 5 is the inclusion of Minnesota Equal Rights Amendment in the 2019 state legislative platform. Commissioner Mattis Castillo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the moment to just highlight this opportunity to add to our legislative platform, the Equal Rights Amendment. Efforts to place gender equality in the Constitution have been around for nearly a century. The amendment in the United States Constitution was introduced in 1921 and was reintroduced every year until it passed Congress in 1972. Minnesota was the 26th state to ratify the amendment in 1973. But passage of the federal amendment stalled short of the required 38 states soon after. And so we continue to try to make equal rights. As we've talked before, resolutions and movements from this board at any level need to directly impact the county. And so we have actually had the opportunity to pull some numbers that demonstrate the impact of equal rights. I think we can all agree on a social issue that it is necessary to recognize our equality as men and women, but let's talk numbers for a moment just so we can move this. The fiscal impacts of the Equal Rights Amendment are difficult to assess, as you can imagine, but we were able to use a reasonable application of cost savings. For example, in Ramsey County, the average wage gap between men and women is 26%. If that gap disappeared uniformly, 728 Ramsey County women currently receiving MFIP would exit the program. That's in the 59% of our program participants, which could be felt as a cost savings to taxpayers in the amount of $8 million annually. So now we can reasonably apply that same formula to other programs like SNAP, WIC, rental assistance, child care assistance, domestic violence services, child support, and other services that our biggest users are women. And so that snowball effect would be a significant cost savings to our county. In addition, our female county employees would see a significant pay raise. And so this is something that we are really looking forward to moving and to move forward. I will just say that it is a bipartisan movement and is moving currently in our state legislature. So we are excited to move this proposal forward and be the first counties to support it broadly and hope our other counties throughout Minnesota and the nation get on board with the Equal Rights Amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I'd like
Before
to
I go to, did I get a second?
second.
All right. That's right. Thank you. That's what you were doing?
Yes, that's what I was doing.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Any other comments?
Oh, and I just want to recognize, Mr. Chair, also that we have former Representative Betty Folliard in the audience and Kathleen Murphy, who has been a lead advocate for the Equal Rights Amendment in Minnesota and across the nation. And so thank you for being here as well.
Thank you for your work. Commissioner Huffman.
Mr. Chair, you know, we, at the board level, we try to do everything aligned with our goals. The last conversation was certainly related to our transparency goals. This related to, we talk a lot about racial equity, and I know Commissioner Mattis Castillo didn't mention the racial gap, but when we talk about wage differential, even more so than gender, if you throw race in there, it's even a bigger issue. And so, so certainly closing, that would certainly impact from a racial standpoint. I think the numbers as well would move even more favorably. Thank you.
Commissioner McGuire.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am excited that Commissioner Mattis Castillo brought this forward. I was fortunate to serve in the legislature with Betty Folliard, and we have been supporting this at the legislature for a long time, but hopefully with local governments now, you know, making another push. I know that this has been an ongoing effort, and with all of us letting our legislators know that this is really important to all of us in local government and throughout the state, that we will get some movement at the legislature and then at the federal level. So we need this to happen at the state and federal level, so we will be encouraging that. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Reinhardt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I am really pleased to support this and to have seconded it. I think that, again, this board has a history of not just passing things that sound good and move on from there, but really saying this is important and why it is important. And the economics of it are sometimes lost for folks. So I thank Commissioner Mattis Castillo for really putting this in a frame that the average person, the average taxpayer, when you think about in just that one area, $8 million a year. That doesn't even, I mean, that's just the economics of it, and that's taxpayer money that's going to that. But when you think about what it means to the families, and the sustainability of the families, keeping children and families safe, because when it comes to domestic violence, oftentimes you will hear that the person, the woman generally, not always, but generally, feels that they can't leave because of financial constraints. So the social impact of what we are talking about here with the ERA and the financial impact is so staggering, so staggering. And I'm glad that we were able to bring something forward here and to pass this today. And hopefully it will make other counties and taxpayers think about what it really means to their pocketbooks, because sometimes I know folks go, well, this doesn't really impact me. It does. It impacts everyone. And when you add in, and I know that you had talked about the racial inequities as well, it does make it even more so. So the numbers that you were talking about are so conservative. And again, it's so important to understand, this is just Ramsey County numbers. You multiply that out and just think about the difference that makes in our society, in our culture. So thank you for bringing this.
Roll call.
Oh,
I'm sorry. No, I'm
I just wanted to
Commissioner
underscore. I just wanted to underscore the importance of this as it applies to economic justice, but we know the connections to health and education and housing and everything else, even justice systems. So it's important that we honor those who have held this banner for so long and continue to do so, and know the impact that it will have on all our people in all our systems.
Good. Thank you. Roll call.
McGuire?
Aye.
Ortega?
Aye.
Reinhardt?
Aye.
Carter?
Yes.
Huffman?
Aye.
Mattis-Castillo?
Aye.
McDonough?
Aye. Good work. Item number 6, public health, personnel complement increase in public health. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second, and Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioners, I'm going to invite Dr. Paul Allwood, our Deputy County Manager for the Health and Wellness Service Team, up to share a few words on this. I think sometimes we have items that are a big deal in which the actual short description of them doesn't really tell the fuller picture of the work going on. This is a really good opportunity to share some work with the Minnesota Department of Health and our community, highlighting the work in public health. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Allwood.
Welcome.
Morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, members of the board and county manager. It's a pleasure for me to kind of speak to this agenda item and to take a moment to recognize the leadership and tremendous skill of our public health staff who managed to secure this funding. I'll start by just mentioning a quote from Dr. King that he made in the 1950s, in which he said that of all the inequities in health is the most shocking and the most inhumane. And despite those very wise words, today we see that there is massive disparities in health across our population. And when it comes to diseases and conditions like diabetes, heart disease, and strokes, we see massive disparities between the white population and non-white residents of our counties. And what this grant is going to allow us to do is to start working purposefully to address this disparity, which we know we have the resources, the skill, the great academic institutions, the excellent healthcare services delivery organizations in our community to be able to address this. So what I think this is going to allow us to do is to start building the will to make sure that we are creating partnerships and developing relationships and creating the education for us to address disparities in these 3 important conditions. I should also mention that not only is the prevalence of these conditions much greater in the non-white population, oftentimes the course of the disease is much more devastating, and the prognosis is much more bleak. And these conditions are also hitting people during the time of life when they have the greatest potential to earn. And then they become people who have to be cared for. And it's, you know, sets up a vicious cycle of sickness and more need for care and you know, the rest, you can kind of fill in the blanks on the rest of this. So we're really excited to have this funding. We'll have $1.9 million over 4 years, and we'll start by hiring an educator to start building those relationships and developing the education that we think is going to be an important part of getting this initiative going. So thank you so much for your time. I'll take
Thank you.
questions if there are any.
Nope, good work. Brian?
Mr. Chair, thank you, Paul, for that update. Just one piece I would add, which is this is a grant that the department has not received in the past. It was an application to the Federal Department of Human Services, a pass-through then to Ramsey County. And part of the reason why MDH expressed an interest in working specifically with Ramsey County was an intentional focus on racial and cultural communities throughout the work happening in public health, which positioned us well to be an on-the-ground demonstrator of this important grant through MDH. And so I just want to highlight the broader work of the department and service team coming to roost in a way where we were a sought-after partner to implement this grant as well.
Great, thank you. Congratulations and good work. All right, roll call.
McGuire.
Aye.
Ortega.
Aye.
Reinhardt.
Aye.
Carter.
Yes.
Huffman.
Aye.
Mattis Castillo.
Aye.
McDonough.
Aye. Legislative update, Commissioner McGuire.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, actually, I would just have to comment that the legislature is undaunted with weather. They keep meeting no matter whether anybody else meets or not. Everything else can be canceled, but they are still meeting. So I just want to say that it's only getting busier and busier. It's hard to imagine that it would get busier. But the first deadline is March 15th. And so we are getting a number of our bills being heard now. They've had all their informational hearings, so they're starting to hear bills. And this week, we have a number of them coming up. Wednesday night is our bonding request for our winter recreation area. We're excited about that. And other metro requests will be there on Thursday. There will be, they're going to hear our transit corridors, our Riverview Corridor, Rush Line, East Metro Rail, and Passenger Rail. And I just really want to thank all of you for, most of us are going to be down there testifying on one or more of these issues, and that's really important for the legislators to hear the local impact that these projects have, and to speak on at the bonding committee about the regional and statewide significance of all of these projects. So just thanks to all of you that are going to be helping out with that, with those bills. And of course, a shout out to our government relations staff, to Jennifer O'Rourke, Claudia Brewington, and we've kept on Nick Riley for the session to really move these issues forward. So they've been working hard every day. They don't get a break, even when there's snow days for everyone else. They are down at the Capitol working. So also last week, the governor released his budget, and we were pleased to see a number of things that the counties are going to benefit from. One is the county program aid, which is a direct impact on our property taxes. When we get county program aid from the state, it really helps us do the programs that the state requires us to do. And in human services, public health, safety, roads, and we really need that to keep our property taxes, lower. So anyway, we're excited about the county program aid that he gave. He extended the provider tax, the 2% provider tax is extended. This is going to help in our public health and human services. He advocated for a robust multimodal transportation funding, and we are very excited to be working with him on all of these issues. So just want to, again, give a great thanks to our government relations staff that's down there, and to all of you who I know is down there a lot. Just want to say also, the Ramsey County League of Local Government meeting, which is going to be talking about local legislative issues, was canceled last week because of the weather. They're meeting not this Thursday, but March 14th. So that's when the local legislative, this is actually not the state legislative meeting. I will give you that update. This is with our local cities and their legislative agenda. But when the legislators meet with the Ramsey County League, that is the meeting that we really all should be at, that one. But I'll give you more notice on that one. And just to let you know that, speaking of legislation, our national conference is coming up next week, and a number of us will be working with our federal delegation on our federal issues. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Any other updates
Yeah,
on
is there any?
legislation?
I know you've all been meeting with legislators. I know that even in addition to hearing our bills, that we've been meeting with legislators, and so thanks to everyone.
Thank you.
On,
Tony? Tony?
on legislation.
Oh,
I
yes,
would
yes, yes, you
just
should talk
suggest
about
that,
this. You should talk about this.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We have been meeting as Ramsey County, Hennepin County, the Association of Minnesota Counties, and MAXA, our social services directors, regarding HF 342, which is to be introduced at the legislature tomorrow evening for informational purposes only with no action taken. The focus is African American Family Preservation Act, which Representative Rena Moran is carrying. There is a companion bill that will be carried by Jeff Hayden in the Senate, and a number of other companion bills that focus on disproportionality and disparity in our child protection system. So we have been working to craft that legislation in such a way that it will benefit the changes our county and other counties are working to make, so as to dispel the disproportionality that exists in our systems and the disparities that, in particular, African American families are found in within that child protection system. So Trista and I, Commissioner Matas Castillo, and I were a part of the meeting this past week with Hennepin County and with Ramsey County, and are engaging this week with MAXA and the Association of Social Services Administrators as well, and working, of course, to keep you informed as this progresses through the legislature.
Good. Thank you.
Well,
Victoria?
Yes, and yes, spending a lot of time with the Capitol, which is really refreshing. The outreach that we have provided, and under the leadership of Jen and Claudia, and with Nick being there as well, but also from the legislators. I mean, they really, if they have questions, they're not hesitating to say, hey, can you talk to me a little bit more about this? Give me more information on that. And so the time spent up there, I think, is just well used, and appreciate the leadership here with Commissioner McGuire and Commissioner Carter and the Legislative Committee. I know that you're not shy about asking us to be up there, so that's good. And honestly, that's the way we get things done. And so spending the time up there makes a lot of sense.
Good. Thank you. Ryan O'Connor, County Connections.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, first, going back to your first item today, my county manager's column will be an opportunity to rebroadcast out to our broader employee base the message shared by the board chair and then the rest of you this morning. And so we will make sure, we changed and pivoted from our original messaging to make sure that that message does get out. We know a lot of people are doing their work and not always watching the board meeting. And so we want to make sure that those words of wisdom and thoughts about yesterday's news stories and the event that occurred do get out to our full employee base. I want to highlight a couple of other items that have been going on in the county. Last Friday was the second and final of the Black History Month celebrations. This one hosted in the courthouse in partnership with the city of St. Paul. We had a number of people there, including Commissioner Carter representing the board. Mayor Carter spoke as well. Joanna Berg as acting county manager, Karen Francois, Paul Allwood, Maria Sarabia, Kathy Hadeen, just for a couple of thank yous to individuals that were there and are here today. I know there were a lot of other employees and staff there as well. I thank them for being there. I just heard really great things about how the event went, and I was sad to be out of town to miss that particular event. And I'll leave the rest to Commissioner Carter if she wants to add anything to that. But for those that were there, it was a moving and important event in pausing and reflecting on the importance of race and culture in our work and in our community and in our history. Two other items. From Parks and Rec, Ken Pelto, he's a program specialist at Parks and Rec. He developed a new winter recreation program. It recently took place out at Keller Regional Park. I think this is that idea of how do we continue to use our parks to bring more people outside, whether it snows or is below zero or not. During the past 2 weekends, we had more than 175 people of all ages and abilities, races, and cultures participate in cross-country skiing, sledding, snowshoeing, used kick sleds, and trying a Finnish whip sled. So I'm going to admit I have not tried, nor do I exactly know what a Finnish whip sled is. So I will be going the next time there's an opportunity. All the equipment was provided free of charge by the Parks and Rec Department. Staff were on site to provide instruction. There's some really cool pictures from the event. I'll ask Mark to circulate one to all of you, but you just see what happens when we create opportunities to bring people outside. Equipment to activities can be such a barrier, and it can be intimidating, it can be scary, and it's expensive. And kudos to our Parks Department for finding a way to break through those barriers and get people outside. Finally, I just want to, again, take a moment to recognize the work that our plow operators are doing. I know we've talked about the weather, but we're going to keep talking about it so long as it snows, and that's important. It's been a challenging February. We're seeing record snowfall not only for February, but we're nearing one of our snowiest months in the Twin Cities in history. You know, these snowplow drivers continue to come in at 2 a.m. in the morning. They're getting these call-ins. They need to get roads open before vehicles get going in the morning, and pedestrians are out as well. They're working 12-hour shifts, and when it finally stops snowing, they then need to clear these pedestrian ramps and continue to clear bridges off. It just doesn't appear to stop, and I just want to recognize the toll that puts on not only employees, but the families around those employees as well. We greatly appreciate their work. We would not be able to get around and do our business without them, and it really demonstrates firsthand the importance of the county's work and all that we do. Thank you.
And we promise not to tell Ann that you were sad to be out of town on Friday. Trista, any outside board and committee reports?
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight, as going on the theme of Black History Month, I was able to participate in a celebration at King's Crossing, an annual event for Black History Month, and it was a great event attended by community members and performers. A young gentleman named Sibian, who was 11, performed a song that was out of this world. The mayor was there and Commissioner Carter there as well. So it was really a great event, and to see those celebrations. One of the things I just wanted to highlight and a takeaway from that event is, the community is talking about, that Black history is all of our history. It's not separate, and that we need to really embrace that history. And it isn't necessarily always a pleasant history, but it is full with historical trauma, and that we need to address and recognize that. But it isn't just historical trauma, as we have seen in the videos last night and our conversation today, is that this is real and ongoing. And so really to take a moment to say, yes, we're celebrating Black history, but that it is an active, forward-looking celebration. So just want to add that. Thank you.
Commissioner Reinhardt.
Okay. That reminded me of a week ago when we were at the event with Attorney General Keith Ellison and Representative Rena Moran, at the Helly Q. Brown Center. There is, and what I was trying to do really quickly here was to remember the name of the book that Helly Q. Brown wrote about just the stories of 60 African-American women and the role that they played in the history of our community, but of our country as well. It's on the website, and so if you Google it, you'll be able to find it. It's very difficult to actually find the book, and if you do, it's very, very expensive because it's something that is that's rare. There's not that many copies of it around. But it is on the website. You can read it there, the entire book, and so do check that out. It's pretty amazing, and I had the name of the book, and now I can't remember what it is. Homespun Heroines and Other Women of Distinction. Thank you. So, but again, it's all of our history, and some of it, a lot of it has just been forgotten, and now we need to bring that back so that we can celebrate in how we got to where we are today, and making some things better than they, or trying to make progress. The two meetings that I want to highlight, one was we talked last week about the TCE spill, or release, I guess it is, at the water gremlin plant in White Bear Township, which affects, it's about 1.5 miles around that area. So it's White Bear Lake, Gem Lake, White Bear Township. It's quite a large area and a lot of population that lives nearby. So the Department of Health and the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency held its first public meeting about it and to lay out what the issues were and the extent of it and what has been done and what is going to be done into the future. The second one will be a week from this Thursday, so on March 7th, again at 6:30. That's when it starts, right? And it's going to be a repeat of that, but I think that there will probably be more information because some of the questions that were raised at this last meeting and trying to get as much information out to people as possible. It was well attended, and hopefully we'll get more folks there even a week from now because it's something that went on way too long. And the fact that it was self-reported, but there are a lot of things that are happening with that really, again, you can look back and hindsight's always 20/20, but it really should not have been allowed to get to the point that it was. I do know that there are, Senator Chamberlain was there, Senator Uyghur, Representative Fisher, Representative Wozlowick, and a lot of other elected officials too. So if I missed someone, I apologize. You shouldn't start listing if you can't remember everything. Anyhow, and they are looking at legislation that could deal with some of the constraints that are there, especially when you have something like this. It is a self-reporting. There's something that just doesn't ring true in that. So anyhow, but there was also, and I do want to give credit to Water Gremlin, they had a person there who, it wasn't really his forum, but when people were asking, we want to hear from Water Gremlin, he did stand up. And he said, okay, I will answer whatever questions you want. I really want to be able to talk about this. And that took a lot of guts, quite frankly. But it does show that they want to at least be in the room and listen and try to respond to some of the issues. The Minnesota Pollution Control Agency and the Minnesota Department of Health did lay out all of the steps that they are taking and trying to get as much information into people's hands as possible. But this is not something that just happened. One thing triggered all of these different steps because you can self-report, but to trigger this event, to trigger the process that actually shut down that part of the operation is something that is pretty, it's not done often. So that shows the severity of the issue. But we are talking about something that has been happening for at least 10 years. At least 10 years. And they are no longer going to use that solvent is what it is. I guess stay tuned for more information on how this will proceed. So it is a very serious issue, and for those that are listening and in the area, I mean, there's been multiple notifications that have gone out, but as we all know, there's still times when people don't necessarily understand that it impacts them. And whether you're inside that area or not, my son and his family is. I am just outside of that area. But this is our community where we live and work and recreate every single day. And so it doesn't matter, that line doesn't really matter as much as how do we as a community pull together to make sure that we are doing the best that we can, not only in that facility, but in other facilities that are out there as well. Sorry it took so much time with that, but it's really critically important and something that we should all be paying attention to. And then also, I'm going to try to give as many updates as I can on the complete count committee for the census as I possibly can, because before we know it, it will be here. And how critical it is. There are a number of subcommittees that have been formed. The joint complete count census committee with the City of St. Paul and Ramsey County is making a lot of progress. We have subcommittees that have been formed. They are starting to meet. I am on the business subcommittee, and what the subcommittees are about is the outreach. In the case of business, is not only how they communicate with their employees, but how they can get the broader message out to folks about the importance of this. And businesses can also include, and does include, the nonprofit businesses that have a lot of outreach and provide services to folks that are generally underrepresented. But there are a number of subcommittees. Anyone that is interested in learning more about the census should go to our website. And if they want to become part of the Complete Count Committee, whether it's a constituency or a geographic area or whatever the issue may be, you can see what the subcommittees are. And if there's something that we missed, we'll bring the issue forward as well. So activity happening there, and we need to keep reminding ourselves of just how important that is to the economic and to the cultural aspects of what we do in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Huffman.
The only thing that I was going to comment on that Victoria has not is just that next week's the Water Gremlin meeting, the public hearing or public meeting is at 6:30 at the White Bear Lake High School, the
yes.
North Campus, just to let people know that.
Thank
Nothing
you.
else. Thank you.
Commissioner Ortega.
Last week, I had the opportunity, along with the chairwoman Nora Slawick of the Met Council, to meet with the Tribal Council of the Indian Prairie Indian community. And we had a great meeting, about for an hour, talking about the Riverview Corridor and how do we get the input, the community engagement from the Indian community. And this is one of a dozen tribes that we have to connect with. So it was a very good meeting, and I just want to thank them for them extending a welcome to us to come and meet with them. And so we headed down to Red Wing and had a great meeting and made that connection.
Thank you. Commissioner McGuire.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chair. As I said, a number of meetings were canceled. Just a public notice, the library board meeting was canceled last week. They've rescheduled it for tomorrow night, so the library board will be meeting tomorrow night. And I was fortunate enough with a couple of us also on the board to attend Futures, which is an Association of Minnesota Counties sessions on upcoming issues and things that are newer in the community, and so we are hoping to bring it to the rest of AMC. But I'll just name a couple of things. We did hear from Twin Cities Public Television, maybe, I don't know if you're familiar with, but Lillian McDonald, who's a former Ramsey County employee, has launched a Twin City Public Television Now's channel, which reaches diverse communities with health and safety information. It's the nation's first 24/7 TV channel with real-time emergency alerts in English, Spanish, Hmong, and Somali. So it was very exciting to hear about that, and it's in the metro area now. They're going to hopefully make it, statewide, but it broadcasts in multiple languages for emergencies. So I can get more information on that, but it was good for us to be aware of that, and there's information on their website about that. And then also, we did hear from Patrice Kunish, who's a Ramsey County resident, actually lives in District 2, but she's the Vice President and Director of the Center for Indian Country Development at the Federal Reserve of Minneapolis, and she is doing amazing work with our Native communities, and it's just exciting to have someone of her breadth of knowledge and experience working on that. She happens to be the sister of Mary Kunish-Podine, who's one of our state legislators, and but she's really gave a great talk about what work they're doing to work with economic development and really lifting up that community. Then we also heard, we had a simulation on crisis leadership and decision-making in the public health realm with, we had a simulation on the SARS, but just to how does your county work on when you have a public health epidemic. And so that was really interesting. It brought back those great memories of when our county, many of us were participating in a simulation at Emmitsburg, Virginia, where a number of our county employees were able to talk about what would happen in an emergency situation. So with that, I also want to just say that as we all are, a number of town hall meetings from our legislators, Attorney General Keith Ellison actually appeared at or attended one of the town hall meetings with Senator Carolyn Lane and Representative Mary Kunish-Podine, and just to hear him talk about
how he wants to work with counties and how he works with local government, and I think it's great to have those partnerships. So, thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chair.
Commissioner Carter.
Thank you. So I appreciate that Commissioner McGuire already spoke about the futures meeting that I was able to attend along with Commissioner McDonough and Commissioner McGuire, also in Staples, Minnesota, Morrison County. And I don't know if you mentioned, I missed, that we also saw an exhibition of a drone
Oh, yes, I
used for surveillance and search, and also for rescue and recovery. Not the drone, but the drone would drop, for example, a life jacket to someone. We were able to also see an exhibition of that county, Morrison County's crisis van, crisis mobile unit, I guess it's called, of their sheriff as well. I just wanted to touch back on our African American History program last week, which the county manager already mentioned, and to share that our guest speaker, Duchess Harris, is an African American history professor at the University of Minnesota. She's also the author of a number of books, including a children's book, Black Lives Matter, which she overviewed for us. She talked about the rebuff that she received during the publication of that book, but that it is actually in use and positively in use in many schools, including the St. Paul and Minneapolis public schools, to help young people understand the special significance of a statement like Black Lives Matter, when we do understand that all lives matter. But in particular, the emphasis on Black lives is due to the circumstances that we've all talked about even this morning. So it was really helpful to hear from her and to hear her chronicle the set of circumstances that actually resulted in that statement, including lost lives of African American men at the hands of police officers over such a long period of time. It was a great celebration, and I just have to give a shout out to Faye's Homestyle Cooking, because the team always makes it possible for those in attendance to purchase soul food meals. And it was if you missed it this time, don't next time. It was an absolutely wonderful meal as well as presentation. And just to name drop a little bit more, Tish Jones, who is a spoken word artist of acclaim in the Twin Cities area, was there and presented to us the importance of young Black lives in poetry and spoken word. So it was a really good session. I'll also talk a little bit about the King's Crossing program, which is an annual program that is put on by King's Crossing, but in particular by Pat Lamb. And that is a name that we all should know, because Pat has done so much as a volunteer here in Ramsey County. She volunteers in voting and, helps as a judge, helps out just in collecting community together, and is always a welcome location at King's Crossing because of Pat. To share information that's going on in our communities, and particularly for our county. I shared along with Commissioner Huffman in a Resource and Energy Board budget meeting, and so we are preparing to share with all of you the continuation of that work and the budget that will support it. In the community, a few things were going on. I should mention that the Spelman College Glee Club was at Hallie Q. Brown this Friday. It's a big deal. It's a really big deal, because young people who get to see them, actually aspire, if for nothing then, to be a part of that glee club, to go and to pursue higher education. So they did a splendid job at the Hallie Q. Brown Center, sponsored by Vocal Essence in our community. Also had the opportunity to attend a dinner for the Sana Foundation, which was held at Rivers Center this weekend, and to acknowledge the great work that Sana Foundation is doing in supporting young people in their futures. The Asian Police Banquet was held also this past weekend, and it was an opportunity to support Asian police officers in supporting each other and all of us in our community. So thank you, and a shout out to the Asian police officers so much.
Thank you. All right, we'll have immediately after the county board regional rail authority meeting. And then right after that, we'll have a county board discussion, housing affordability chaired by Commissioner Mattis Castile. Our annual luncheon with the Landmark Board of Directors at Landmark Center is at noon. And 1:30 county board discussion, community use of Ramsey County owned or managed lands chaired by Commissioner Huffman. With that, we're adjourned. Thank you.